Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. I'm your host, Ashwin. I'm joined by a very happy DJ because we're obviously celebrating the India's 3-0 series victory in the ODIs against Sri Lanka, and King Kohli scoring 3 centuries in ODIs in his last 4 innings. He's back, isn't he, DJ? We will have so much to talk about, but I have to start with asking you, Virat is back at ODIs, isn't
Yeah, absolutely. He's back. Full stop, man. Like we waited for the second coming of the king, and I think it happened just before Diwali, right? So we had the 100 against Afghanistan in the Asia Cup. We then had an ODI 100 just before the end of the year. Last year in 2022, we've now had 203 innings in 2023. It's his favorite opponent. I think he's got 10 ODI hundreds against Sri Lanka. He's magnificent. I mean, the stats that they were putting on the screen as well, like Sachin, I think to get 4600s took a 431 innings, and Kohli is like somewhere in the 250s. There, he is so far ahead of anybody else. And Ricky Ponting is sitting at number 3 with 30 ODI hundreds, where Sachin is 49, Kohli is now 46. Just, I mean, for fans of Kohli, it's just so good to see that. And haters gonna hate, man. You just got to ride out those times. This just proves it.
it was a special day and a special series, and I just absolutely loved seeing it. I mean, obviously, never want to see the third and final ODI in a series, which arguably was a dead rubber. Unfortunately, empty stadiums and stuff, but 317 run victory. That's got to be. I think it's the highest ever. Now I'm
It,
reading in the
yeah,
history of ODI cricket. I mean, how do you?
it's a record.
When we were growing up, the teams weren't even making 317. Now they're winning by 317. It's unbelievable, right? I remember
Yeah,
when
but it,
280 was a good score.
yeah, it is. It's unbelievable. It's also a little bit embarrassing if you're a Sri Lankan cricket player and a Sri Lankan cricket fan. I mean, obviously they competed more in the T20 game because the game is compressed and you have more of a chance. There's less chance for a team to show its difference in class. But this was a little bit embarrassing. As you said, it was a dead rubber. Maybe they switched off a little bit. But I mean, you do feel for Sri Lankan fans after the heydays of Mahela and Sangha and the Ranatungas and De Silvas and the Jasuras of the world. This is just kind of payback for the 54 all out. I read a great tweet somewhere. We got all out for 54 a long time ago, actually. For those of us who've been around that long, it was 54 all out. I think it was Sharjah. Chaminda Vas took a bunch of wickets. And then we missed the chance to get them all out for 54, but we got them all out for 73. And the joke I think that was going around on Twitter was that you've got to adjust for inflation over the last 20 years. So it's the same thing. But I mean, kind of sad, but convincing, demolishing uh, win. Fantastic by the Indian team.
Yeah, I mean, really well said. We will double click and get into all of it. That 54 all out brings back memories. Murli was 3 for 6 in that innings, and Vas took a 5 for. Just unbelievable. But DJ, let's start about. We're going to talk about this India Sri Lanka series, and then kind of a little bit about where we go from here, because we've also had some announcements from the Team India selectors, including the squad. So maybe in the second half of the show we'll talk about that. But let's start with selection. Like I feel like we talk about the Indian cricket team. This could be the Edison Sledges selection podcast more than the Indian cricket podcast. But first off, Shubman Gill, right? It's very easy to sit here after 3 ODIs, one of which he made a century. I think in that first match he made 60 odd as well, 70. He made 70 in the first match, and then obviously great century today. So very exciting for him. But at the start of the series, Rohit said, we are going to back Gill. And Ishan Kishan has earned himself the unique distinction of being the only player in the history of time to make an ODI double century and get dropped in his next game. It's tough, right? It's just tough. You look at Gill as arguably over the longer period a more deserving player, and he proved his ODI medal earlier today at the time of recording this. At the same time, Ishan made a freaking double century and then got left out of the 11, right? So in hindsight, does that feel like the right call? Does it feel a little harsh on Ishan or both?
I mean, it is a little bit harsh on the young man. He scored a double hundred against Bangladesh in that last ODI innings that he played, and he gets dropped in the next game. But I mean, Gill, I think we probably agree that the ODI format is the perfect format for him, the way he bats, the pace at which he bats, and he is the heir apparent for Virat Kohli in a lot of ways. They look $1 million each of them. Gill bats beautifully. In fact, it was quite interesting last week when Varun was on after we finished recording that Varun was of the view, and maybe I'm outing him a little bit over here, that he didn't enjoy watching Shubman Gill bat that much, which I found a bit odd. But I don't know. The issue with that, right, is that if you're going to go with Gill and Rohit, it gives you an all right-handed top six. And there's no Ishan Kishan in there, and that does mean that Rahul is going to keep wicket for you. But in hindsight, Gill batted beautifully, man. I mean, he's a pretty player to watch. He sort of gets himself out a little bit sometimes, even in that second game where he was batting brilliantly, he just kind of against the run of play smashed it into the hands of mid wicket. But he's the future, and the only thing that goes against him in my book is his right-handedness. Um, but 100, a 70, and a nice, I think, 30 or 20 odd that he got in the second game, which he looked
You know.
brilliant and just cover driving magnificently at the Eden Gardens. It didn't do much wrong, right? And
So
he's
I had this hypothesis that Ishan Kishan has a lot more years, and maybe they're like, listen, he's inevitable to come in, but he's going to slot in for a Rohit when it's Rohit's time. Or he's going to slot. And I realized Gill is younger than Kishan, so I don't know if you knew that.
oh wow,
But Gill is 23 and
yeah,
Kishan
because
is
Kishan
24.
must be Pant's era, right? Because Kishan was Pant's under
I
19
mean,
captain.
he's 24. Gill is 23, so it's not that different. I just thought
But
it was
also like Indian ages.
okay. That's a discussion for a
Yeah.
different day. But just running through that first ODI, it was almost that perfect top order batting where only one guy went over the three-figure mark. And of course, we're talking about King Kohli, but Rohit got runs, Shubman got runs. I mean, we were 140 something before the first wicket fell. Iyer got off to a start, Rahul got off to a start, and kind of, you could look at it and say 373 for 7 is a winning total against a Sri Lankan side like this most days. You can also look at it and say from 300 in 40 overs, it was not good enough, or from 280 odd in 35, it's not good enough. So, great for the top order, but a little bit disappointing from the lower order. And then actually Sri Lanka batted really well, right? Like you can look at it and say Nisanka batted well, and I'm not going to go down all of it. It was nice to see Siraj pick up a couple. Umran bowled outstanding in that first game, picked up 3. But of course, what I want to talk to you about is Dasun Shanaka, and the century that he ended up on. He made 108, but it may not have been a century, right? DJ, do you want to talk us through why it was almost not a century that ended up being a century?
Well, I mean, first of all, I think you said Sri Lanka batted well. They didn't actually bat that well. I think they got up to 303, but they were like 200 for 8. I don't know when their second 8 wicket fell.
No, fair.
When,
206 for 8, 179 for
yeah,
7, 206 for 8. So you're right. I was
yeah.
generous when I looked
So,
at the score.
so yeah, it was a generous assessment, and I think Dashun got dropped by Kohli once as well in the deep or something like that. But the big talking point was the end, right? Like I think it was the 49th over or the 50th over where Shami is bowling it and he runs in. And Dasun Shanaka, who's been
It
milking the
was
strike.
49.4. Like it
Okay, so
was,
the last over.
yeah.
And he's on 98, so he wants to take the strike to get his 100. And so he's backing up, and I think there's a journalist, Peter Della Pena, who does the analysis on how many balls Dasun Shanaka has stayed in his crease before that incident, and how many and it kind of shows you he was trying to take an advantage to get to the other side to be able to get to his 100. And Shami kind of almost jokingly just flicks the bails off, which is quite hard when you're running in. And he does it really well. He doesn't fall into the Adam Zampa trap of getting into his bowling action and going above the vertical, whatever the MCC is made up randomly on the spot over there. And he flicks the bails off. And then it's out. I think almost everyone knows, but Nitin Menon, possibly to give time to the fielding team to say, "Do you really want to do this?" goes up to the third umpire, which is his right. And then Rohit comes in, says something to Shami, and then Shami's like, "We're going to withdraw the appeal." And I felt that was, and then the presentation they asked Rohit about it, and Rohit was like, "Well, he was on 98. We can't get him out like that." When he says we can't get him out like that, I don't know whether that's him meaning, because you have to realize English is not his first language, right?
Sure.
So he's obviously he knows he can get him out like that because it's a legal dismissal. But he says we wanted to get him out the way we wanted to get him out, which I think goes against the whole like Ashwin, this is out. It's a Dipti Sharma did it at Lords to end the game, which was great.
I like the tweet you put out. What life gives you Sharma, make it Deepthi, not Rohit. That was a good line.
Yeah, it was, but it kind of just takes away a little bit from the narrative that's been building in cricket. Obviously, the English were like, "Oh, Rohit is such a sportsman-like guy," and for whatever reason, it draws those lines. I think I don't know if Kohli was captain, whether he would have withdrawn it. If Rahul was captain, maybe he would have withdrawn it. I don't know. Oh, what if the situation was different? That's the other point you were making,
So
right?
yeah, so I mean, I believe I don't think he should have withdrawn it, right? I think you're kind of undermining what Ashwin and other folks have tried to do by making it a legitimate form of dismissal. You can argue should Shami have done it or not at that point, but I mean, I think he's well within his rights. It's I don't know. It's almost like there's a lot of different arguments, right? There's two really that come to mind. One, match situation. Um, if he had edged it in if Shanaka was batting and he edged it and it just got the faintest of edge and it went to the keeper and he was on 98. And now the match situation was Sri Lanka had no mathematical way of winning. Would Rohit have withdrawn that and said, no, just give him one more chance, let him make the century? No, right? That's not how that works. There's no situation in which I can imagine if he got on LBW or edged or something, something that requires an appeal, if you will. Like I don't think you can withdraw a bold appeal. But if he got out edged and Shami started appealing and the umpire was about to raise his finger and Rohit said, no, don't let him make a century. That sounds crazy. So why is this different?
But but now what happens when Ashwin does this in the 2023 World Cup in the semi-final
So
against
Ashwin
England?
has a YouTube show and it's in Tamil, so I rely on translations and clips and stuff. But he has basically said he's come out and defended it again and said, he would have done it and it's a legitimate mode of dismissal. I don't think he specifically like targeted Rohit. I think that'd be bad for his career. But I think the second interesting question there is why does the captain have that authority to withdraw an appeal, right? So same thing, right? Sometimes a batter will walk and not actually be out. So they think they've edged it, bowlers go up and appeal, and the batsman walks and they get the batting captain, who may be in the pavilion at the time, can't run on the field and say, no, you shouldn't walk. Right? Like there's no other situation in which, like, this is a game between batsman and bowler. There's no other match situation in which the captain can intervene and supersede his batter or bowler and say, that's not up. So it just seems crazy to me. I mean, we could spend the whole episode. And the last thing I'll say is actually within a few hours before us recording this, it's happened at the Under-19 Women's World Cup.
Exactly.
And
the kids are showing us how to do it.
But you know which team did it?
Pakistan.
Pakistan were some of the most vocal, like not the country's hope, but some of the Pakistani ex-players were some of the most vocal about spirit of cricket and not be the thing. Now what do? Do you not back your young players? Do you make a scene, make a spirit of cricket thing? It was legitimate. I watched that. The Rwandan non-striker was well outside her crease. She didn't go too far into the water action. She was running, stopped. It was absolutely legitimate. So, all right, I'm
but
done
even
with my
Dasur, there's an ulterior motive to want to get down to the other side.
Of course, yeah.
He wants the strike, and he's taking advantage of the situation, and
which is his right. He has the right to try to push his luck, but then he's taking the risk that he gets.
And this was the time for India to hammer that nail in and say, if you wanted that 100, you should have tried to do it the right way. He got his 100 in the end, and he's played brilliantly. I mean, there's no.
He's an outstanding cricketer. You don't want to take away from that, but like if he would have been equally outstanding if he made 98.
And then international hundreds don't come free. As we've said before, neither of us have one of them, right? And remember the Sehwag incident?
Yeah.
When Suraj Randi bowled a no ball to deliberately deny Sehwag an international 100. That's how much importance these hundreds are given. And here we are handing it out on a plate because, he was on 98. We can't do it. This is the time he should have hammered it home, brought it home.
It's just not good enough. Clearly, you and I agree. I'd love to hear from the comments. And by the way, as for those of us watching us record it live on YouTube, there's also the men's hockey World Cup going on, and so India's playing right now. So it's very exciting. There's a lot going on, and it looks like India-England is going to end 0-0. Or I don't want to jinx it, but it looks like it might. But DJ, let me quickly ask you before we take a break and talk about the next two. Virat Kohli. Like I've gotten to that point which I said about Sky last game, and like I just glossed over his century. Great century. He made it a strike rate of almost 130. How good did he look out there? I mean, yes, Rohit and Gill both got starts, but that's again the difference and what makes a great player is going on to be able to convert to that century, right?
Yeah, and he was dropped for the in the first game twice, I think at least. Poor fielding by the Sri Lankans. You don't drop a player of that class. Once the keeper dropped him, and I think once he was dropped at cover. But I mean, when you're having a bad patch, those catches get taken, blinders get taken, and you just need to deal with it. And it was just great to see. You saw the celebration again. It meant something to him, even against Sri Lanka, even against an opposition he's been scoring runs against for years. I think he may have scored his first two international hundreds against him. You remember the hundred against Malinga that he scored at Hobart, which is magnificent. But again, you see that hunger is back, and he's happy. He's enjoying his cricket. It's so good to see Virat Kohli doing that. I mean, we've been big fans, and we were starved of the Kohli celebration. Right? How much did we talk about number 71? When is number 71 coming? When is it going to come? When is it going to come?
Now we're at 74.
Got 74.
It's
And
great.
he's done it in T20. He's now done it in ODIs, and it's building up beautifully for the Border Gavaskar Trophy. Oh,
That
goosebumps.
that is as good a point as I could think of to take a quick break. We're going to take a very short break. We will be right back after this to talk about the remainder of the India-Sri Lanka series. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. Thank you for all of you who are watching us on YouTube and sending in comments and stuff. Definitely hit that like and subscribe button. It helps us grow. DJ, big win in the first match. I want to talk about one quick change that came in, right? So if you look at it, Siraj and Hardik bowled pretty well. Shami was a little expensive, but obviously he's our strike bowler. Umran bowled great, picked up 3 wickets, a little expensive, but we've almost come to accept a little that that's his role in the team, right? And that's been the case for many out and out quick bowlers over the years. You come with that explosive pace, you pick up wickets when you're least expecting it, but yes, you go for runs because you're so quick that they just need to get an edge and it'll fly over the keeper and go for runs, right? But Yuzvendra Chahal didn't look great, has looked sort of 50-50. We've talked about him and Kuldeep both over the past as confidence kind of bowlers, and it's unclear if he's kind of got that confidence right now, but he was dropped to make way for Kuldeep Yadav, his partner in the Kulcha pair that we've called for many years. And we love to see them bowl together for many years, but for team combination reasons, you need that Akshar/Jadeja spot. And so we haven't seen them bowl together in a while. But Kuldeep coming in and picks up 3 for 51 in a great first innings bowling spell where we managed to dismiss Sri Lanka for 215. Siraj looked good too, Umran looked good too. But I mean, at least you have a better cricket memory than I do. In my cricket memory, it seems to happen that Kuldeep is out of the side for long stretches, and then he always gets one opportunity, always makes it count, and then may or may not come back in. Right? It's like the 5 for he got in Australia. Like he just seems to come back in and get wickets. Does that feel fair?
Yeah, so when he was our overseas spinner, he didn't play another overseas test after that, the number 1 overseas spinner. He was man of the match against Bangladesh in the first test, gets dropped in the second test. And he picked up wickets here. And the joke was all about, don't do too well, you're going to get dropped for the next game. But he bowled beautifully. What he's done, and there was some good analysis on this, he's changed his run up a little bit. It's become a bit straighter instead of coming more diagonally. He's bowling a bit quicker because he's getting more of his body into it. And I mean, they were bamboozled. And that's what that left arm wrist spin brings you. It's just brilliant to watch. And he was so happy. And you could see the players were happy for him. You could see him running to Kohli whenever he got a wicket. You could see him running to Rohit whenever he got a wicket. He was just really, really pleased. And it was good to see. I mean, he's a Delhi Capital now, right? He's one of our boys. And I'd like to think the Delhi Capitals had a role in rehabilitating his career, which KKR had almost destroyed. Sorry about that to KKR fans, but like the way he was treated there, left out of the team, not given any support. I think Ricky Ponting deserves some credit, and the Delhi Capitals management deserves some credit, including maybe Rishabh Pant, for backing Kuldeep and giving him that confidence, letting him work on that game. And yeah, it's just good to see him. I think he also mentioned that he'd worked with Chahal, so it was nice to see them both being back in the same squad working together. Interestingly, why is Ashwin not playing this series? Do you know?
I don't actually. Maybe they're just
saving him
for the just fitness is always his challenge, right? So if they're saving him for the Border Gavaskar, but
so that he can get them into the final, and then he gets dropped because you're going to play in England in the final. Is that the plan? The master plan for Ashwin?
This seems like a more heated discussion that we'll pick up a different day. But maybe, honestly, maybe. But Let me ask you yes, no question. We'll double click on it later.
Mm.
Just yes or no. Does Kuldeep play in the Border Gavaskar Trophy?
At least one test match. At least one. Test him out.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
I agree. I mean, I think there's a world where we play Kuldeep, Ashwin, and Jadeja slash Akshar, and obviously depending on the pitches. But we'll come to
Play
that.
four spinners and one quick. Bumrah.
Four.
But if
Even
he's
better.
fit. Bumrah's going to miss a lot of it apparently because he's injured.
Mm-hmm.
But Judd is coming back. Apparently, he's playing a game for Saurashtra. Just
Yeah,
a quick
we just announced, so it'll be. I think it starts in 8 or 9 days from.
24th
late in
Jan.
January.
He's
So.
playing for Saurashtra.
So 215 all out, you think should be a reasonable chase, but obviously not a great wicket at the Eden Gardens and not easy to bat on when I say not great. Rohit and Shubman each get a little bit of a start, don't do great. Kohli, unfortunately, after the century, perishes for single digits. Shreyas again looks good, gets out to a good ball. And then you're sitting here saying, okay, 86 for 4, chasing only 215. I think we were at 15 odd over. So run rate wasn't the issue, but you lost 4 quick wickets. And then the guy who has basically decided that he's going to make the ODI number 5 slot his own. Of course, I'm talking about vice captain, wicketkeeper, number 5 extraordinaire, KL Rahul. I mean, DJ, there's always critique, but it's coming on both sides, right? On the one hand, you're seeing he batted at a strike rate of 62 or something. On the other, in a match where strike rate was irrelevant, he took his team over the line. So I want to know your point of view. Rahul and Hardik basically saw it through. Rahul remained not out, and Kuldeep came on at the end and hit a couple of good shots. But yeah, I mean, as exciting as the 370s are, sometimes a good test of an ODI team is chasing 215 and losing 4 quick wickets, right?
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, Sri Lanka probably underperformed with the bat. The wicket looked pretty good to start off with. They should have probably got closer to 300. And you could see it was taking turn. The wicket was taking turn. There was a bit of seam movement, the one that got Kohli nipped in off the deck. And I think it was Lahiru Kumara that bowled Kohli. It was an interesting dismissal. There was a bit in it for the bowlers. But KL strike rate is overrated. Really showed what he meant, man. Like they just absorbed the pressure and yeah, they finished it off. Finished it off calmly. Obviously, Indian fans of a certain vintage, India Sri Lanka at the Eden Gardens, chasing a reasonable total, sends shivers down some of our spines. But this is the new India, right? Like you saw KL soak up that pressure, and instead of being 120 for 8 with the stands burning, India brought the game home to win the series and kind of seal. I think it's their 12th series win consecutively, bilateral kings.
Jeez.
So if the World Cup was a league, we would have been winning the league. Maybe that's the next suggestion Kohli should.
That's it. That's where we go next.
Should provide the ICC with.
But yeah, I mean, great knock from Rahul as a whole, right? As I look at it, I think, you can look and say strike rate and all that stuff. A lot of our listeners say those kinds of things. You can also look and say strike rate is absolutely critical in the first innings to set the tone of a match. Like Kohli himself is the king of chases and knows how to pace a chase, right? Go ahead, DJ.
You know who this reminded me of, that innings by KL Rahul?
Ooh.
Another wicketkeeper batsman for India who would have played exactly like
absolutely. And that's what made him as good in now. Dhoni, like to leave it late because he backed himself to hit big. I would have been more stressed because I don't necessarily back Rahul to say in overs 47 to 50 hits massive sixes. This match didn't need it. Right? It didn't need that massive flourish at the end because he wasn't chasing 300. I think if Rahul had paced his innings this way, chasing 320, I would have been much more frustrated.
Yeah.
But he knew the total was small and he got it there. Dhoni had a different mettle when it came to those last 3 to 5 overs, and Rahul doesn't have that, but he didn't back on that. So
is Rahul our World Cup keeper? Do you see that happening? 50 over World Cup keeper?
Question. Man, I don't know yet. I think
bat 5, keep wicket for 50 overs.
I worry that, and he's playing test. He's going to play the test before then. He's playing T20s in most cases. Or I guess he hasn't made the T20 squad.
Yeah, interesting,
But that's a different discussion. But I don't know. I think they're still going to play around a little with the idea of Kishan because Kishan gives you that lefty option, can't open. So depending on if everybody's fully fit, then it becomes a different choice. But if Kishan needs to slot in somewhere, he will. So Right, DJ, third ODI, the most exciting one for me. I think 166 for the King, not out, hit 100, just 110 balls. So batted 130 for his first century, batted 150 for this one, made 390. So, hey, we talked about Gill already, but Virat just looked at a different level today, right? Just and the number of sixes, I think he had 8 sixes, which is uncharacteristic a little bit for him, but just absolutely outstanding. I don't even know what else to say. He looked great. He looked like he was feeling it. He looked like he had the energy. And 5 6 months out from a ODI World Cup, could Indian fans hope for anything better than Virat Kohli back in ODI form?
No, absolutely
So,
not. The greatest, I'd say he's the greatest that the ODI game has ever seen.
yeah,
I mean, beyond Sachin. And there was actually the Test 2 has released the documentary by Amazon Prime.
yeah.
And I think Steve Smith and Manas Labuschagne have a section where they talk about Sachin or Virat, and they pick Sachin in Test matches and Virat in white ball cricket because he is he is the greatest ODI player in the history of the
I
game.
mean, it's almost hard to dispute, right? Yes, you can look at 18,000 runs and 49 centuries versus 13
Yeah.
something and 46, but 178, 170, 180 less innings. Like it's just
Wow.
staggering.
Yeah. 172 less innings is, I think, what the stat is, which
That's
is
just staggering,
in
man.
that time at this rate at which he's scoring 100 every five or so innings, 5.5 innings.
Mhm.
And so 170 games. How many more hundreds would that be?
Every 5 innings, so about 30, 35, 36, right? Like
A-
that seems
And
insane.
after a year, after a 3 year
34, yeah.
spell where he's done nothing,
That seems absurd to think about. Yeah,
that's how far ahead he is of
yeah,
he's got 1600s more than Ricky Ponting,
it's unbelievable.
and he's only got 300s less than Sachin. He's man, it's just too good. It was and today was a master. Today was he was in complete control. He's the maximum number of sixes he's ever hit in a game, in an ODI game. He's never hit
Oh, is that right? Is
60.
that a new? Yeah,
Yeah, maybe that's a function of him playing so much T20 cricket last year, because
yeah,
last year was all about
it's great.
T20 cricket, right?
It's great.
So maybe we have opened up our ODI game more with the T20 game that we've been playing. But today was just pure mastery of the game, and it was good to see this coming batting first, because India has been very good in the past
Mhm.
batting second, chasing totals. This series, you had everything. Batted first twice, got two big 350 plus scores, big ones, and then had a difficult chase in the second inning. So, yes,
Well,
Sri
I think
Lanka were
what's
not
left
a
that we
great
want to see
opposition.
is we want to see against New Zealand is chasing 375 and see how we do there, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the only thing that this series lacked. We had a small total scrappy chase and we had two big batting first. But I agree.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see if we can chase the 350 plus scores, right? That's
Yeah.
the next test, as you say. Perfectly put.
So let me ask you one more thing, and then I want to talk about the voters. But Hardik Pandya did sat out this game. I don't know if it was an injury or not. But Washington Sundar comes in, doesn't bat, doesn't bowl because three full-time bowlers basically were able to take all 10 wickets. And nicer to see Siraj get his full 10 over spell because he picked up four pretty early and was given a shot to take that fifth and just missed out on it thanks to a DRS review. But yeah, I mean, does Washington fit in this ODI setup? Is it sad for him to get one more cap but didn't get to bowl or bat? And I'm looking through, I don't even think he took any catches or anything.
Well, I don't know. See, the thing with Washington is he gives you that bowling option that can bat up the order as
Mm-hmm.
well, and he did himself a lot of good in the last few series where he played well. He batted, I think, at four in one of the games as well against possibly Bangladesh or one of the other series.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Unfortunately for him, I think with the form everybody else is in, he's currently an injury backup for someone like a Shreyas. If they do get injured, then Washington will slot in. Or if Ashwin, God forbid, gets injured, he would slot in for Ashwin and provide that batting off spinning all rounder. But he's not first 11 right now, unfortunately, for various reasons, right? Similarly, Sky brought in for the third ODI. There was a chance to unleash him, right, in the 43rd, 44th over.
And they didn't bring him in,
And
right?
he would have
To
probably scored 100, which is what he does in T20 cricket regularly.
yeah.
But we sent in KL. And I think I put a tweet out saying, "Kya Sky ko tali bajane ke liye khilaya." But that's what it looked like
Yeah.
at one point.
Yeah.
But sorry, we were talking about Siraj, right? Like he's actually, I think we should acknowledge, but we had an issue taking wickets in the power play, And he, I
Yeah.
think, was brought in specifically to address that last year.
I mean, I don't think 6 or 8 months ago I would have said Siraj was one of our top ODI quicks. And now I'm sitting here saying, gosh, Bumrah, Shami. And then you start thinking through down the end. You're like, of course. I mean, we played Shardul for a while. We played, we've tried a lot of different things with that third quick spot in Blizzard. We'll play third quicks. But Siraj is sitting there saying, is he our is he our number 2 quick bowler now? Because of that ability to take power play wickets. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and power play wickets are invaluable in the one day game, and we were suffering because we were not taking those wickets with Bumrah and Shami both playing. And so, I mean, I think he's probably the front runner for that second seamer spot. I don't know what Bumrah's fitness is going to look like, but if Bumrah plays, I think Siraj probably sneaks in slightly ahead of Shami. But if Bumrah doesn't play, it'll be Shami and Siraj that take those two spots, I'd
So
say.
I think again a problem of plenty, both with batters and quicks, and of course spinners. So exciting! We have the 3 ODIs against New Zealand coming up. I think it starts so fast. It starts. We're recording this on a Sunday. It starts on Wednesday again.
Oh
So
wow!
3 ODIs, and then the T20s start immediately back to back. Like it's just non-stop cricket, which is great. Keeps us entertained and gives us something to do.
This
DJ,
is
we're
why
a
I
little
need a
over time.
pool of like 50 people to play all of these games because they all get
We need a
pitches.
pool of like 8 hosts to just rotate through. Also, it's just hard to host with this much cricket. But we talked a lot about the series. We're a little over time, but I want to talk to you about 2 selections that came up. The first, it sounds bad to say this, but a little more negative for me is Surya Kumar Yadav, the white ball or the T20 over legend already. I'm calling him that. Has been selected in Test matches. We talked about this a little. Let me give you my 2 cents really quickly. I think you know where I'm going with this. I think it's a continued signal that we are incredibly confused. You could look at it and say, by the way, one of our better players is spin, and Nathan Lyon would be a threat. I believe that. I agree with that. I don't even think he makes the 11. I go through our Test batting 11, and I don't see where he slots in. You have Rohit and Rahul, maybe Gill. Then you have Pujara, Kohli, Iyer. And then as you get to 6 and 7, you want to start giving yourself, you have to have a keeper, and then you will start giving yourself bowling options. I don't know where Sky fits in. And so my frustration is he's an unbelievable T20 cricketer. You want to quote unquote reward him by getting him in the Test side, which he deserves, if you will, but I don't think the T20 translates straight to Test matches. Hasn't really been playing much ODI cricket for India, suddenly jumped straight into the Test team. I just worry we're confusing him, sending him and all of our other players the wrong signals. And like, man, just let him, he's 32, 33, I think. Let him focus on becoming the T20 icon that he can be in for the next 6, 8, maybe more careers of his career. But starting to get him into Test just feels. All right, I'm done. I'm done with my rant. I'm curious if you disagree.
But I totally agree with you. You see that there's players like Murli Vijay started off as a Test cricketer, became a T20 hero for CSK,
Yeah.
lost his Test game,
Yeah.
out. KL Rahul started off as a ODI and Test cricketer. Again, he got 100, I think, in Sydney in the 2014 tour. Became a T20 hero, lost his way halfway through. We keep tinkering with these players, getting them to play different formats. Every format has a different demand, right? And there are I think only David Warner and Virat Kohli are true all format players in the world right now. I can't think of anyone else who walks into every format.
Batsman.
Batsman, yeah.
Yeah, it's like Bumrah walks in there every morning.
Yeah, but
Maybe
who
Pat
else?
Cummins.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's different for bowlers
Yeah,
have
yeah, yeah.
different
No,
skills, right? They
sure.
can adapt
Batsman,
a
I
bit
can't think of
better.
a third either. Yeah.
I mean, Steve Smith
Ba-
doesn't really
Ba-
play T20. He's in and out of the
Babar,
side who's
maybe.
carrying drinks. Babar, yeah, Babar is
Yeah.
the third one. You're right. Babar is the third batter. Um, but Rizwan's lost his spot in the Test
Yeah.
side as well. So
Yeah.
I think those are the three that are all format players. But it's so hard to change from one format to another. And what it does is it keeps people like Sarfaraz Khan out, and I'm just like, you've got you rewarded Jaydev Unadkat with a call right now for his Ranji performance over the last few years. I've just looked up Sarfaraz Khan's stats, and you
It
can
was
correct me if I'm
staggering.
wrong. He
980
averages
something.
80 in first class cricket at a strike rate of 70. Yes, Sky I think averages about 45, but averaging 80 in first class cricket.
And he had
He's
that
played
series
36
where he
games.
made 980 runs in 6 matches or something insane, right? Like, yeah.
He's done that. You've also got a Hanuma Vihari.
Yeah.
He's not made the Test squad, but are we trying to follow the Bazball model here a little bit? What? Is that the plan? Because we were burnt in that fifth test match so badly that we're like, okay, we're going to bring our T20
We're bringing our
superstar.
best T20 strikers into tests, and we're playing all
Yeah,
of our old slow batters in T20s. That's what we're
yeah.
doing. That's the
It's true.
model. That's
It's
it.
true.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know. Like, what is Sarfaraz Khan thinking? Like, what do I need to do? Do I need to score 1,000 runs in an innings or something like that? I don't know. He's just sitting there. And Hanuma Bihari hasn't done anything wrong. He was a hero in Sydney 2 years ago, and
Yeah.
he's out for our best T20 player who's batting at the next level in T20 cricket. I don't know, man. Like it. Last week we ranted about this. This week we've ranted about it. There's nothing against Sky because we love the guy, and
No, this guy's
hopefully he does well,
unbelievable.
right?
Big fan, man. He's going to travel with the team, probably not get a look.
Yeah.
And then you've prevented him from either just working on rehab and fitness and prepping himself to become a better ODI player or going to play domestic circuit. Like you just pulled him out to travel. Anyway, DJ, last one. A little bit of the similar, but I feel like fits better, which is Prithvi Shaw gets 379 runs in a Ranji match. And then gets called up for T20s. Now, you could argue, I feel that's a little different. He's played T20 cricket for a long time. He's played T20 for India before he's doing. But it also seems a little crazy that suddenly he gets added back to the side, which I think he's well deserving of. But on the back of a 300 or of a triple century test. Is it the same kind of mentality problem?
I don't know. With Shaw, I think there's been some whispers about attitude. There was a comment made by some. There's nothing ever clearly said, other than the cough syrup incident that we know of. But there's a lot of innuendo about, maybe his attitude isn't correct. Maybe he's going down the Vinod Kambli way. He's not. There's nothing ever actually said what his issue is and what he needs to work on. Then he goes and gets a 379 not out. And he's then added to the T20 squad, which is not a bad thing. He is probably one of your best T20 hitters at the top of the order, one of your best power play hitters. He's done well over the last 3 IPL seasons. So this is just reward. But why is it coming after 2 T20 World Cups where we've been begging for players with intent to bat up the order and know how to bat in the power play? Are we preparing for 2024? Maybe there's an influence of Hardik, who's like, you know what? I don't care about what he is. I had a bad
Yeah.
attitude, and look at where I am.
I think that would be really interesting if that's true. And the new skipper has come in and said, I want, players like this belong. But yeah, I mean, I think good for him. Well deserved, I think. Just the back channeling and the hard to tell behind the scenes stuff is what gets a little frustrating.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, 3-0 over Sri Lanka, going into a New Zealand series high on momentum. New Zealand has just flown over from Pakistan, where they just ended up.
Can I just add one thing? There's a video that the Black Caps put up of New Zealand flying from Pakistan the day after the night of finishing their last game.
Yeah, at like 4 a.m.
Yeah, and there's one guy carrying a coffee machine in that video.
Oh, really?
I don't know what. Like, what? You don't get coffee in Pakistan or what?
Dude, that's amazing. We're getting back to Australia touring India from the days of yore and carrying cans of baked beans. And you think that's what it is?
I think it's like a coffee machine. I'm pretty sure it's a coffee machine. But go and have a look at that video afterwards. It's very odd thing I saw. I thought.
Anyway, New Zealand has arrived in India and ready for a good ODI series. DJ, great to come off of 3-0 series. I'm pumped to get into test season. I'm excited to talk. Unfortunately, the game started at 10 p.m. for me, so it's hard to watch. I'll watch session 1 on each of the 5 days before going to bed, I think. But yeah, good win. Nice to see Kohli back in form. Thank you for joining me. As always, thanks to everybody for listening. We are at One Tip One Hand on all the social medias, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You can also email us, contact at One Tip One Hand. Leave a comment down on YouTube. We try to read and respond to as many of them as we can. And we'll be back next week to talk about India, New Zealand. Just the train of Indian cricket never stops. In the interim, good luck to our under-19 T20 women. We didn't get to talk that, but a phenomenal first match win for Team India. And
Shafali just smashing the kids, 2600 and over.
It was outstanding. And then the other opener girl, Sarawat, was just also made 92 or something. Just outstanding. And India's men are playing hockey, so good luck to them as well. I think it's 1 win and 1 draw at the time of this recording. That's it. We're signing off. We will see you again next week. Thank you for listening to the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast.